Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's nice to see all of you today for another one of our dual credit discipline dialogue sessions. My name is Mark Schneider. I am the AVP of K-14 Academic Initiatives and Support for Ivy Tech. It's a long title that basically means I help on the academic side of the house with our dual credit programming statewide. Today, for our session, we have Brad joining us. Brad, I'll let you introduce yourself. Why don't you also give them a little bit of your history as well? If I remember correctly, I believe you're a former dual credit instructor, so you can speak to kind of both sides of the house here. But yeah, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, welcome everybody. My name is Brad Fentress. I've been with Ivy Tech full time now. This is my 7th year. But before that, I was an adjunct for a couple years and also did some dual credit courses as well. I taught at South Dearborn High School for 24 years before moving for full time at Ivy Tech. So I had some dual credit courses within that, and then in terms of a little bit more background, as Dr. Schneider noticed before we came on, I've got a Cubs banner in the back here. I live in the Lawrenceburg area now. I teach for the Lawrenceburg campus, live in Aurora, which is where South Dearborn High School is. But I was originally, I'm a transplant from the region, grew up in Maryville. So I've seen the northern side of the state. I've now seen the southeast corner, and I went to school at Indiana State, so I've been on that side too. So I'm probably destined to finish my life in Fort Wayne or Angola or somewhere up in that corner, so I can get to all parts of the state. But like I said, I've been full time here with Ivy Tech for 7 years, but I have seen both sides of the dual credit uh, program. So.
Well, we appreciate you joining us today, Brad. So from Lake Michigan to the Ohio River to the banks of the Wabash, you've seen all parts of the state here. So,
Exactly.
and you've seen both sides of the dual credit coin. So that's good to hear here. Before we get started, a couple of things to mention. Brad did mention that he adjunct with Ivy Tech before becoming a full-time faculty member. As a dual credit instructor, you meet our faculty requirements. If you are looking for part-time work, things along those lines, oftentimes during the summer, but also especially during the fall and spring. Sometimes some of our campuses are looking for an extra instructor. We also have online sections where we need additional math instructors. Feel free to reach out to your local Ivy Tech, the program chair that you work with, for your dual credit class. And if you have a good relationship with him or her, let them know that you'd be interested in adjuncting if you'd like to do that. Oftentimes it's a win-win for both the college and for you. Lets you get a nice little extra paycheck and helps us fulfill our faculty loading side as well. So do keep that in mind. Also, it's November, and so the college has unofficially dubbed November NACEP November. For those of you who have been teaching dual credit with us for more than 5 years or so, you probably remember what the world was like pre-NACEP for Ivy Tech and how much the system has changed during that time, and really how when we went through our NACEP accreditation, NACEP being our accrediting body, it really professionalized a lot of the stuff that we had going on with our dual credit programming across the state. Well, now it's time to reaffirm or reaccredit the program now that it's been 5 years. All that to say, we are going to be looking for excellent syllabi submissions, great assignments. We need teachers to sit in on a peer review interview, things along those lines. So if you'd like to lean in and help us with that, reach out to, I'll put my name and email in the chat. We'd like to be in touch with you so that way we can have some great examples to show off to NACEP. We're doing our self-study this year, data submission next year, and then the peer review will follow up after that. So, okay, so Brad, let me ask you here, our curriculum committees meet at least once a year, once in the fall. Some meet 3 times a year. For those on the dual credit side, the K-12 side, a lot of people are surprised to find out. I know as a former high school teacher, I was surprised to find out when I first joined the college that curriculum decisions are largely made by faculty, not the administration, but really as faculty led, faculty driven, whether it's course outcomes, um, common assessments, almost anything on the academic side is exclusively driven by faculty. Brad, were there any notable updates from the fall curriculum committee meeting, if it has already met? And sometimes the best news that we get in these meetings is that there's been no major updates, and that you can expect the kind of status quo with your courses for the next year or two.
So a couple changes. There are some changes being made in the online version of 211 and 212, which is our Calculus Calc 2, mainly revolving around textbook changes, kind of resources that way. So that's being basically redeveloped as we speak. But the other big development that some of you may already know about is the addition of Math 138, which is a 5 credit hour course that combines college algebra and trigonometry, that the typical 136 and 137 that a lot of you probably teach as dual credit. There is now 138, and the idea behind the 138 is it is more of a pre-calculus with the idea of moving on to calculus towards more of like an engineering type program. If students are you taking the 136 as an end course, or 136 and 137 with the idea that they may follow up with a 201, which is a brief calculus, in that approach, then you can just kind of stick to the 136 and 137 combo. But there is probably going to be a question, not only with your school, but with your home campus, as to what to do with that 138. Now, for us here at Lawrenceburg, we don't have a lot of students that are on that track that would need the 138. And with it being a 5 credit course, as opposed to 136 and 137, both being 3 each, if you offered the 138 as a dual credit, they would actually be getting 1 credit less than the 136, 137 combo. So that is something to consider as you talk to your administrators and your K-12, K-14 administrators on your home campus as to how you want to handle that 138. I believe there's some schools that are piloting it right now. But again, at our campus, we probably, if we offer it at all, it will probably be very sporadic.
Yeah, and I would just add, from kind of a statewide perspective, I think we're going to kind of tiptoe our way into the 138 course. There's still some approvals that need to go into it, making sure that it's allowed, for instance, for the Indiana College Core, also for course high schools where maybe you have exactly 30 credit hours towards the ICC, and 135 and 136 are 6 of those credit hours. The last thing we'd want to do is substitute that out for a 5 credit hour class and then be 1 credit hour short. The other thing to consider, and this really kind of depends on your high school schedule, if you have block scheduling or how long your periods are or other things like that, is a 5 credit hour class requires 80 hours of contact time. Now, if your class is meeting for an hour, and you have, your full semester, 90-ish days, then you could fit that class theoretically in an entire, fall or spring semester. That would open up more opportunities to take the 200 level math classes as a single class in the spring semester. But you just need to make sure that we get that balance right. So we still, on the Ivy Tech side, statewide side, we have a few things to work out. We also need to make sure we bring our K-14 teams up to speed. But this will be something that you will be seeing, at least discussions about it. No mandatory, decisions, being handed down from the college or anything like that. But, just something to be aware of in the next year, 2 or 3, those things will pop up. So that's a very good and timely update right there. Of course, we always like to talk about the completion options, math being a very critical part of the Indiana College Core. I'm sure you all are very aware of that, so we won't spend too much time on that. But one thing that we typically get in these sessions, Brad, from the group is a question of, what is the difference between the college level curriculum and the high school? You're a former dual credit teacher, you taught high school. Is there one or two points of emphasis that maybe it's a certain course objective or a certain resource or other things like that, that dual credit instructors should be aware of, or maybe some point of emphasis that you always hit home with onboarding? Is there something in particular you'd like to touch upon for the difference between the college and high school side of a dual credit class?
Yeah, I think for me, normally when I address this with my dual credit instructors, a couple things. One, of course, we want this to mean something. This is a college course, even though it's taken at a high school setting. It is a college course, so we want those students to have to earn that college credit just as if they were taking it on our campus. So in terms of the rigor that we expect on our college campus, we want to mirror that at the high school setting. So, but as long as our objectives are being met, then the high school instructors really have a lot of leeway as to what they do with the rest of the time. You mentioned contact hours. So take a typical, like a college algebra math 136, we meet for 48 contact hours. In a high school setting, you could get 90 or more if it's, a full semester, depending on what your schedule is like. So it gives you the option to, something that I have to do in a 3-hour class session, I may cover 3 or 4 different topics all at the same time, and then do that again 2 days later. Whereas, you've got the option to kind of spread that out a little bit, and maybe even a little bit extra time if you want to work in, some extra projects, or throw in a couple extra quizzes along the way, some extra assessments, just to kind of test their knowledge as they go. But as long as the objectives that are set out in the course, in the syllabus, are being met, as long as the percentages in terms of what, 60% of the grade being towards testing, and then the rest of it can be combination of quizzes and homeworks and even discussion boards or other types of projects. As long as those match up with what we're doing here at the college, then I think everything is fine.
Yeah, those are good points there. We like to, emphasize or at least touch upon, while it is a dual credit course, it's a college class for college credit, college objectives, college credentialing standards, all of those types of things. The courses typically meet longer than the normal 48 hours or so of contact time, and to take advantage of that. And sometimes that does show up in our common assessments where our dual credit courses, end up having in the aggregate across the state better scores than maybe what's on campus, and that's because of the extra contact hour. So, lean into that and take advantage of it. I did mention common assessment. I should know this off the top of my head. Are there any of the courses have a common assessment, maybe that they need to utilize in Ivy Learn or anything like that?
Yeah, I don't believe so. In fact, the dual credit visits that I've done, there are a lot of different resources being used. All of the textbooks obviously have been approved, but they don't necessarily match what we do. Now, that being said, if anybody is interested in an assessment that matches what we do here, those are always going to be available with your dual credit faculty advisor or faculty instructor. It's not a mandatory thing, but it's certainly something, a resource that's available if you wanted a common assessment so that you're testing exactly what we do here at the college. Those are available. But you also at this point have a little bit of leeway in terms of, as long as the objectives are being covered, exactly how you cover it and what you put on your tests can be up to your discretion.
One other thing that we typically touch upon are site visits. You mentioned doing some of your site visits already. Uh, for some of our newer teachers that are on here, uh, could you discuss like what typically goes into a site visit? Sometimes I think we get, some teachers who've never gone through one and kind of view it through the lens of like, a principal visit of the classroom being, a very formal assessment and, or anything along those lines. It's from a statewide perspective, that's not it for dual credit. It's, meant to, encourage a collaborative, professional relationship between two colleagues. But maybe just touch upon real quick what you typically see, how long they last, things like that.
Sure, yeah, and formal is certainly not a word that I would use. It's a very informal, at least the ones that I do. And a lot of it depends on the situation too. For instance, I know in our meetings that we've had recently, Dr. Schneider, I know you mentioned onboarding and how important that is moving forward. Um, if you're not familiar with that, anybody that is teaching a new course, even if you've been with the college for a while, you might have been teaching dual credit for 5 or 10 years. If you take on a new course, it requires an onboarding. And there's a process that you'll go through with your dual credit faculty instructor. So I've had a few of those situations where we had to do an onboarding. If there's no onboarding required, for me, this is only my second year as a program chair. So last year, as a first year program chair, I decided to visit everybody on my dual credit instructor list so that I could make a connection with them, make sure they knew who I was, how to get in touch with me, and so forth. And then this year, just within the last month or so, I went back and visited half of them again, even though it's only a every other year requirement. I went ahead and went to half of them. So next year I only have half again, and then it'll cycle that way every 2 years. So typically what I'll do is just contact them, send them an email, see what's a good day and time to come in and visit one of their courses. And I'll sit through the whole course and just observe one lesson. We try to work it around so that I can get there either before class or after class or during a prep period, so we have a little bit of time to talk without the students around, just to go over, syllabus requirements, which by then are already in and mostly approved at that point. They usually collect either in hand or digitally collect some common, or not common, but some assessments or homework assignments or just samples of things that they use in their classroom that can be uploaded into Dual Enroll. And it's really just a lot of question and answer time for the instructor to make sure that they're comfortable not only with the course itself, but with the Ivy Tech part of it, the requirements of, what needs to be reported and when, how do I navigate the Ivy Learn system, the My Ivy system, what are my responsibilities from the college point of view, and how I can help them in any way towards their class. So like I said, it's pretty informal. Most of them at this point I know fairly well. They've seen me a couple times already, and they know that they can reach out to me if they need anything.
Yeah, and one thing I'll add is that it's a very collaborative two-way relationship. The number of times I've heard program chairs mention different things that they've learned or seen in a dual credit class that they have taken back uh, for our on-campus offerings, whether it's a certain lesson or an assignment. Oftentimes, just I think everyone with the K-12 perspective who's now in higher ed understands the strengths, especially uh, on the teaching side, teaching and learning side, the pedagogy that goes into it, that really the college could benefit or does benefit a lot from their dual credit instructor. So we appreciate that as well. We learn just as much from our dual credits as instructors, probably more honestly than the other way around. So always.
It's funny you mentioned that too, because I mean, this is year 31 for me teaching total, but and I would have thought after a couple years, if you would have told me that when I was 31 years in, I would still be changing things. I mean, like why? You figure it out within the first 5 years, and then you just lather, rinse, repeat. But it really is like I'm teaching in different ways now than I did last year and 2 years ago and 10 years ago. It has to evolve with the way that the times are changing and that kind of collaboration that you're talking about, sitting in 15 to 20 different classrooms and seeing how people do things and taking ideas is a way to continue that evolution.
Yeah, always good to hear. Before we open it up for Q&A, just a couple of reminders and things in case you didn't know about. One is the professional development requirement that is required by NACEP. So every year, our dual credit instructors have to complete PD modules. Those are due April 1st, so plenty of time, almost 6 months, a little less than 6 months to get them completed. Typically takes a couple hours or so to get it done. Veteran teachers probably a little bit quicker than that. But if you have time next week, maybe you don't have classes with Thanksgiving or definitely over Christmas break, consider knocking that requirement out sooner rather than later. And then also, not all of our dual credit instructors are aware that they get 2 free courses with the college every semester. So if you or your dependents, which counts as your children, and then also a spouse, if any of that group is taking courses with Ivy Tech, you can get 2 or 6 credit hours covered for free by the college. Each class being approximately $500-ish. It's a savings of around $1,000 a semester. So especially if you have children that are thinking about coming to Ivy Tech or are currently in at the college, it's a good way to save a little bit of money each and every semester. Typically, the forms have to go through the local campus HR office. So just reach out to your K-14 director to be able to take advantage of it. The only caveat is that you have had to have been a dual credit instructor for 1 year. But once you get that year under you, then you can take the free classes. Anyone also with an Ivy Tech email can download the Microsoft Office products for free. So if you're on your personal computer, you need Word, PowerPoint, Excel, all those things that require a subscription. And instead of sending Microsoft, a bill or getting a bill from them every month or quarter or year, however it is, you can just download it for free and use it for free as long as you have an active Ivy Tech email. So you can go to my.ivytech.edu and you can download it right off the website there. So those are all of our talking points there. Brad and I have been chit-chatting here for about 20 minutes or so. Want to open it up here to the entire group. If you have any and all questions, we welcome them. Brad can handle the very specific math questions. I can help kind of the dual credit programming side. Also, you have 30-some colleagues from across the state. Great opportunity to share resources, brainstorm problems, other things like that. So I want to take a minute here and let anyone who would like to come off mute to ask a question or chat for a minute. Okay, well, I've counted to 7 in my head very slowly, which was what I was told to do whenever you ask a class a question. So I'll give everyone another minute or so to ponder that if they do have any questions. Before we end these, typically I always like to thank everyone not only for joining us and taking some time out of your day to join us in this afternoon, but also just thank you for being a dual credit instructor. The state of Indiana, if you've looked at anything here involving dual credit the last 5, 10, 15 years, the state of Indiana is a leader nationally in dual credit programming. You can look up any statistic, and from a dual credit programming perspective, not only is Ivy Tech the largest program in the country by about a factor of 4, but also just the state of Indiana typically is first, second, or third amongst California, Texas, New York, Florida, all these gigantic states, 2, 3, 10 times bigger than us. And it's because of not only the ecosystem that the state has set up, but really because of our dual credit instructors. We have over 3,000 dual credit instructors. Dual credit instructors are the backbone of what we offer, whether it's the Indiana College Core or our various degrees, other things like that. All of that wouldn't be possible without our dual credit instructors. So this year we're going to serve somewhere in the low 90,000 number of students, maybe 95,000 when everything's all said and done for this school year. So just a huge number. We're probably going to have around 10,000 completions earned by students. So those are certificates, Indiana College Cores, degrees, things like that. It's really making a big difference in the lives of students. So I do see a couple of things in the chat here while I was talking. One of them is with the upcoming graduation requirements, making trades more available. Will dual credit classes be available to the students to help them with their trade requirements? I assume when you say trade, you mean CTE requirements that's being there. I mean, generally the state is leaning heavily into making dual credit even more accessible. Kate, I don't mean to tag in my boss, but my boss, Dr. Lash, is on here. Katie, I don't know if you have any particular insights. For those watching the YouTube video right now, this recording is November 20th. The final graduation requirements and high school design rules will not be announced for another 3 weeks. So I give that caveat to say what we say now could possibly change in the next 3 weeks and might not be accurate when you watch this YouTube video at a later time. But any thoughts about that, Katie?
No, that was a good qualifier, by the way. But I think that I'd like to understand a little bit more about the question, just meaning like the ability and within a student's schedule, like allowing more flexibility in the schedule. Is that the question with the new requirement?
Yeah,
I do perceive the requirements will allow like flexibility in your school schedule, but I mean, to be able to answer you concretely on if it will create more dual credit, some of that will be how your district chooses to implement the new diploma, right? And so but I agree with Mark that statewide, the intent is, more students will need to have that conversation around what completion they're earning, whether that's a technical certificate that does reside more in like a CTE space, or if that becomes, maybe combined with the Indiana College Core, and they're in a lot of classes with you. So I do think that the flexibility within the diploma should allow for more students to access a variety of classes. Again, I think that'll vary widely.
Yeah, I could also see a day in the future, not next year or even a couple of years from now, but just kind of the push, generally speaking, towards a competency base, awarding credits on, in that area right there. I could see us moving in a direction where instead of them being, semester classes on campus, we typically have 8-week classes. How would that look in a dual credit class, scheduling, all that? Lots of things to consider. But I could see us trying to figure out how might we, be able to expand those offerings still within the current parameters of the schedule. Someone asked let me put my name and email in the chat. So that way, if you would like access to a particular thing or need follow up with someone at your local Ivy Tech, I can get you in touch. I do see a few things here around common assessments. That would be something that's, if you want access or more information with the particulars, the program chair or faculty member that you work with at your local Ivy Tech campus would be the person to contact, who can give you kind of the granular details that could go into it. And then Brad, if you don't mind, could you put your name and email in the chat as well? Um,
Yeah, it's in there.
oh, yes. Yeah, and yeah, I agree with Brad's message. Um, does Ivy Tech offer any compensation for teachers that want to become dual credit certified? We do not offer compensation to become dual credit certified, but there are a few programs through CHE that allow teachers to get the credentials to become dual credit certified. That's through CEL and UIndy. One's Teach Dual Credit. I think that's a liberal arts one. I forget what they have. There are two programs, but they can you can take those courses for free. There is no compensation associated with it, but it is available for free. Okay. Yeah, and seeing more things here about the common assessment. Yeah, there's a lot of local, there's 19 shades of green. We have 19 campuses. 19 shades of green is a phrase that gets thrown around every once in a while. There are 19 shades of green for how the common assessment works. So yeah, just reach out to your local program chair for that. Okay. Any other questions so we can help answer? Okay, well, just want to thank everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Brad, for being a part of this. Like I said, this was a record-breaking crowd. I think at one time we had 32 people in here, so that's a great number. We'll get this posted to the YouTube page here in the next day or two as well. Appreciate all of you joining. If you have any other questions, like I said, either reach out to myself, Brad, or your local math program chair. We'll be happy to help you. So thank you today, and have a good rest of your week and a good Thanksgiving as well. So thank you.